Hey, it's Nikki Thompson, and you're listening to Tea with Nikki. Embrace your sexual energy. Now, today on the podcast, I have a guest. She is Carlie Maree, and she's this incredible woman who has created Soul Modes, which is an amazing body of work that she's not only puts out into the world working with one-on-one clients, but she actually has a Wall Street Journal best-selling book of the same title. It's amazing what she's been doing. And she not only shares that, but we go into how she got to this place and how she has created this amazing life. So I'm excited to share this episode with you today. Let's get into it. Hey, so I'm so excited to have my guest on today. Carlie Maree is quite an epic woman. I found you through a number of different places, but mostly because we were running around in very similar circles online for quite a while. And then my good friend Bridget Thompson, she's like, "Oh, Nikki, come and check out this chick. I think you're going to really like her." And this is how I met you. So welcome and thanks for joining me today.
It's such a pleasure. I love talking about all sorts of things. This sounds like it's going to be a really juicy topic where soul modes meets sex. Let's do it.
Yes. I'm really excited. I feel like when I reached out to you, I'm like, I know Carlie's going to be open. I know she's going to have some interesting perspectives on this. And I absolutely love your whole concept and your book around soul modes. So we're going to dive into that a bit today as well. But yeah, so tell me a bit about what do you do exactly?
Yeah, so I'm an author. My book Soul Modes came out at the end of 2019. It's a #2 Wall Street Journal bestseller and a USA Today bestseller. It's been a really big thing in the world, and I think it will be increasingly so. I teach motivational intelligence, so I help feminine core beings, so most women and some men, understand how they tick, understand what drives them, what motivates them, and what holds them back. And I love doing that. And I do that in the form of my books. My second book will come out this year, but also in the form of lots of online programs, online courses and programs and memberships. And also I personally mentor a select few superstars. So I create social media content. I have a podcast as well. It's called Go Hack Yourself. And I'm just really fascinated by I guess, what I call motivational intelligence, which most people have never heard of. It's a phrase I basically kind of invented, where it's really about understanding what motivates us so that we can create the most positive outcomes in our life in the most easy way. So we're not fighting against ourselves. There's no hustle, there's no push, there's no exhaustion, there's no burnout. It's doing everything within from an energy of flow and not making anything about ourselves bad or wrong. But just understanding how it works so we can work with it. It's like surfing a wave rather than trying to swim against it. It's a completely different way of doing life.
I love that. And I think a lot of women listening will be like, what the fuck? Like, how is this even possible? Because it's going to be so far outside of what we're taught and how we are kind of conditioned to believe life is meant to be, how business is meant to be, how parenting, relationships, everything. So how did you get to this point of living in this flow and doing this work?
Just asking a lot of questions. I'm an inquisitive little thing. I always have been. It would have been really annoying as a child. Now it's actually my superpower and makes me lots of money and helps me help a lot of people. And it's a really good thing in my life now. This fact that I ask a lot of questions and I'm fascinated and I refuse to just take the answer that someone gives me a lot of the time. So I call myself a mad scientist. I guess I just refused to believe that there was something wrong with me. When I was it sounds so conceited, but bear with me. When I was a new mum, had a daughter, my marriage was struggling, as many marriages do early on in becoming parents. And my marriage was really struggling and I sort of lost myself a little bit and I was trying to find myself, whatever that meant. And I guess, my husband would say to me like, oh God, you're all over the place and I just can't seem to please you and all this sort of stuff. And kind of, I was feeling like maybe I was crazy. And we split up, and I was just broken in bits. I was devastated. And throughout that process of putting myself back together, I just figured so much out about myself. I went on this real journey of went a bit of a spiritual awakening and worked with different healers and therapists and learned about neuro-linguistic programming and learned so much about the mind and about energy and about the soul. And I just, throughout that, I got this such a hunger for knowledge and understanding and wisdom that I just realized a bunch of things, and I spotted a pattern. Because once I saw it in myself, I could see it in other people as well. So when I created this sort of research project of figuring out what I thought, you know, I knew that people taught there were these 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, where there's like dynamic phase and expressive phase, and how different parts of our menstrual cycle, we want different things and we should do different things. But it just felt like another set of rules. It just felt like another set of shoulds. And it just didn't really apply for me. Like sometimes I would be full of energy and it'd be like day 2 of my cycle. Like I would feel really motivated, but my body was tired. So I felt this kind of push and pull and to and fro. And I was just like this, I'm just not enjoying, life this way. And I just got this sense that life was meant to feel more good than this, and that I wasn't supposed to feel crazy and I wasn't supposed to feel exhausted. And so I just went, well, what if there's nothing at all wrong with me? And what if I look at this from a beautiful sense of curiosity? And so I just learned a whole bunch of stuff about womanhood, and I put it all in a book. And thousands of women around the world have gone, oh man, that's me too. And here we are as a result, you know.
I love that. I love that. And when you were kind of going through that stage of trying to discover yourself, or, you know, I don't even know what that looks like anyway, but when you're going through all of that, what was kind of something that you did that moved the needle the most? Was there, I don't know, what was there? Was there something? Give us something. No.
It was journaling. That was the biggest thing. Was I started writing down how I felt. And that was how I started to see the pattern. Because I was working with, I had like a clinical psychologist I was seeing like a holistic therapist, Reiki healer, different people, psychics that I was seeing throughout the year or so of my marriage break, just straight after my marriage breakdown, trying to put myself back together. I learned about crystals and oils and all this sort of stuff, just trying to find the thing that was going to make me feel better. And just about every single one of them, from the psychic to the clinical psychologist to the holistic therapist, all said, you've got to write down how you feel. You have to write. And the psychic actually said to me, you have to write down your feelings or they will give you cancer. Like she was like, I was like, wow. Whoa, man. Okay. Like, geez, I'm going through enough already, aren't I? And so I started to really journal, started to write down my feelings, and like, there's a really clear message coming here. And so I started to see a pattern, and I started to realize that there were some days where I wanted to hide away from the world and be alone. There were days when I wanted to be surrounded by friends. There were days when I wanted to buy something new. There were days when I wanted to throw out something old. There were times when I wanted to just sleep, times I wanted to stay up all night researching something. And I just spotted a pattern. So I'd say journaling was probably the biggest thing that moved the needle. And it's, to this day, it's something I do pretty much every day, often many times a day. So I'll just get a pen and paper and I'll work through what's in my body right now, what's on my heart right now, what's on my mind right now, what's my soul telling me right now, and just work through that. And it's where all of my good ideas have come from, all of my best posts, all of my biggest shifts. And it's really profound and powerful. And it's something that is free and easy and simple. And it's something a lot of people just are really resistant to doing for some reason. I think a lot of the time because they don't want to face what's going to come out. They're afraid of what's going to come out. But to be honest, like, it's you. You don't have to be afraid of your own mind. It's you. Like, it's only going to bring up what's ready to be looked at, you know. And we have so much more capacity to process our own stuff than what we realize if we give ourselves a chance.
I love that. And I love that that was what moved, even though you tried all of these other kind of modalities. And, you know, everything has a place, right? Like everything you kind of helps you process to some degree. But I think with journaling, it's amazing that people can overthink the process. Like they need journal prompts or they need, you know, things like this. It's like you will just get the pen and paper out and shit will come out. Like it will come out, like something's going to come out. But when people are overthinking that process, I think then that they're putting in, okay, what should I be writing? And then it's like all of this can kind of hold people up from doing that. I love that. I love how simple that was. And that statement of, you know, if you don't write it down, it's going to give you cancer. It's, you know, I get where she was coming from in that, you know, if we don't move through these emotions, they store and they cause issues.
They really do. And I think that's why it's so helpful to understand our modes, because journaling looks really different in each mode. So I think what happens, the point you make is really important, that some people will try and journal because they're in super mode. And in super mode, they're like, okay, what are the things I need to do? Oh, I should journal. That's something I should do. So they journal when they're in super mode. And super mode, your journaling is just going to turn into a list of things to do. Right? Like it's not going to flow out like that. Journaling in super mode looks really different to journaling in sparkle mode. So that's why, as you said, a lot of people want prompts. So in my book, I've got prompts for each mode, because in sparkle mode is when you're best doing your gratitude journaling. Don't bother trying to do gratitude journaling in bear mode. It's not going to feel good. It's going to feel hard. It's going to feel forced. Do it in sparkle mode when it's going to flow out of you like glitter. In bear mode, do that big deep dive into what's ready to shift now, you know. In wild mode, do the big visionary work of like, what do I want in my life? It can look really different. And I think when, as you said, when someone's attached to it, needs to look a certain way, that's when it doesn't work.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. And I think, you know, for me, I've always been a journaler. Like I actually, so when I went through a divorce a couple of years back, and I bought the most beautiful journals I could find. Like this is one of them. They're like sparkly. I have them all on my shelf, and they're just beautiful because it makes me want to do it. It makes me want to open them and read them and have them on my shelf. And sometimes I'll read again. Sometimes I don't. But I have one just for ideas, like just for random ideas that'll come up at different points. And I just, the shifts that have happened by actually sitting down and doing it, it's also that giving yourself that time just to process as opposed to being distracted, you know. And that's what I think a lot of people struggle with, is that distraction. Instead of feeling, it's like, let's get the phone and scroll on social or online shopping, or these are just mine. So now that you've kind of got to this point, what do you recommend for women who are kind of they can see that there's something for them. They can see this big vision, but there's something blocking them, but they're not sure how to get past that. What do you do with that?
So often the thing that's blocking with them is that they need to see evidence that it can work, and they need to know how it's going to work. But when you are a visionary, when you are someone who can see your life for what it can be rather than for what it is, and that's probably what's happening, that visionary part of them is trying to come out, is like, there's more to life than this for me. So when you allow yourself to really see that, when you create space to allow yourself to dream, because we spend most of our childhood being told to stop daydreaming and get our head out of the clouds, right? Be realistic, be a realist. Well, the opposite of a realist is a visionary, right? So I work with the women who have that visionary spirit in them, and that they can see, or they want to be able to see, their life and the world, in fact, for what it can be, not for what it is, because those are the people who change the world. Those are the people who innovate and create really profound change. And you could be one of those people, right? Like we are, like, look at us here doing our work in the world. And there are a lot of people listening probably going, I want that. I want to be a part of that. You know, like that's sparking something in me. There's something in me that's hearing this and feeling something. So I think being a visionary, like a visionary is willing to move forward without proof that it can work and without knowing how. Visionaries don't get maps. They make the maps. Someone had to go there first. So often people will say they're looking for clarity. I'm just not clear. I need clarity on how to get there. And often what I would say is it clarity or is it certainty that you're looking for? Because the sense of sureness that I have when I go after a new big dream, it doesn't feel like certainty. It feels like trust. Yeah. And there's a big difference between trust and certainty. Energetically, there's a big difference. Ultimately, it just looks like, well, I know it's going to be okay. I know it's going to work out and it's going to be fine. I just know. But that certainty, I just know, is different to that trust. I just know. I just know. and I'm willing to move forward without evidence that it can work. I know that I'm safe and I'll be okay if it doesn't. But I'm going to have a go anyway. And I think that's where a lot of people are feeling stuck. I think stuckness is an illusion. It just means you're moving through something. It's not a still state. You're just moving through something. And I think a lot of what a lot of people are moving through is society's bullshit story that they've been given, that you must be certain, you must have a plan, you must be, should you know it's going to, how do you know it's going to work out? Well, I don't, but I'm doing it anyway. Right? Because if I don't try, it definitely won't.
Yeah.
I just think that's the difference between the people who go after the dreams and the people who don't, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the other issues that a lot more women have is when their partner doesn't have that same kind of mentality. What's your advice for those women?
I was married to someone who had a very different mentality to me, and now I'm with someone who has a much more similar mentality to me. It certainly feels like a clearer path this time around, right? But the way I see it, and if I could go back and do my time again, I guess I would say play your own game. Now, that doesn't mean reject your partner or not consider your partner's thoughts or feelings, but it also doesn't mean you don't necessarily have to take on their fears.
Yeah.
I think that we can be really respectful, that we are part of, say, you're part of a family, right? And that, you know, family Inc., as my dear friend Julie Tenner would describe it, you're kind of like the, you know, the joint managers of Family Proprietary Limited kind of thing, like you're running this. And yeah, so like I guess we take into consideration the person that we love and we share a home with, because it's going to affect them. The things that you do is going to affect them, but also you've got to be led by your soul first. Like, I am led by my soul. I will follow. I'm with a beautiful man who I completely adore. He is the king to my queen. And I will follow that man to the ends of the earth, right? Like, if he goes, I've got an idea, we're going on an adventure, let's go, I will have my little, but I haven't planned it. Like, I'll have that moment and then I'll go like, I trust you, let's go. And I will follow him because he has that energy that I trust. And if you're in a relationship where you don't have that, I would be looking at that and being like, where can I maybe explore a little bit of the idea of feminine energy, and where can I actually allow this beautiful king to lead me? If that feels like he's worthy of that, if you have a worthy king, you know, to your queen that you can be kind of guided by, that's a beautiful thing. But a true king doesn't squash his queen's dreams, right? Like, he doesn't just shit his fears all over you. That's not how it works. So for me, what I've learned is that communicating what I want, what I see, and showing, because the masculine, I'm assuming you're a feminine core being in a relationship with a masculine core being, right? I'm just assuming. But to the masculine, they sort of want like the logical, and they need to know that you've kind of thought it through. So if I go to my lover I'm sitting here in this beautiful beachfront apartment, I went to him and said, I want to spend some family money on getting an apartment for me to work in, because I'm finding it quite challenging working around our kids at home. The nanny's there with the kids, but I was there too, trying to work, and they would interrupt me. And I said to him, this is what I want. He's like, oh, okay. He hadn't sort of pictured that or thought of that as an option, but I was like, I want us to talk about this. He's like, okay, talk to me about it. And I said, right, this is the kind of place that's going to cost this much. I think it's going to pay off in this way. I'm thinking we pay 6 months up front, then we reassess at 6 months. Like, I kind of just needed to go to him with, I've thought it through. And he was like, sweet, love it, let's go. Yeah. Whereas if I was just like, I'm sick of working around the kids, it's a problem, fix it. Like that, it wouldn't have gone the same way, you know?
Yeah.
But I went to him with like, this is what I'd like to do. I want to know if you're on board with it. And he was like, yeah, you've thought this through. That's a solid plan. So I think if we just go with like, and we have this energy of apologeticness about it, of like, I don't know, I know we probably shouldn't spend the money though, right? Like, I'm just so sick of working with the kids, but I don't know, like, I feel like we shouldn't spend the money. You know, like, he's just going to pick up on that energy. But I was like, this is what I want. So I'm playing my own game. I'm going, this is what I want. I've thought it through. I understand how the masculine works. I understand what you're going to need to hear. Read the Queen's Code if anyone hasn't. You know, the masculine brain works. Yeah. Julie Tenner's work has also been really profound for me. Her recent book just came out, Flowers and Honey. Amazing.
I just read that too.
You did, right?
Yeah. So good.
On the podcast.
Pardon?
Going to have her on the podcast too.
I will definitely. That would be awesome. Yeah.
One of my dear friends. I completely adore her. Her work is profound and it's been really big for me. So understanding how men work, to use a general language, understand how a masculine core being works, to be able to go to them and explain things to them, you're just going to have such different results. If you have got an energy of, I'm scared, I don't know, la la la, if you go to them with damsel energy, it's not the same as going to them with queen energy.
Yeah. I love the way that you've put that and that example. I think that's brilliant because, women often, there's that kind of uncertainty and they're trying to bring this problem to their partner, but it depends on your energy, and that's the only energy you can manage, right? You can't control their energy. You can understand how they work, but you can only control your own energy and how you come at the problem with that. I think that's brilliant. So I love how you explain that. Thank you. So before we finish up, I would love to know, how can people work with you? How can people follow you, find out more info? Because I adore you. I mean, as much as I can be in with your stuff at the moment. And so how can people do the same?
Yeah, so get my book is probably a good place to start. It's on audiobook. You can get it on Amazon, ebooks there. There's also a Soul Moods movie. So I made a little documentary. If you just search the Soul Moods movie on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, you'll find it. Start there. It's probably a really good place because once you understand how those modes work, you'll know where you want to go next with it. So there are a bunch of Soul Moods mentors that I've trained, that they use it in different ways. Some of them, teach yoga around it, and some of them use it in relationship counseling. And, there's like 30 of them and they all do different things. So that's really cool. And then, if you want to come and check out my work around, I help the visionary women to do their work in the world in really powerful ways. So come and find me all over social media. My podcast is called Go Hack Yourself. You can come and find me. But I think understanding the modes is really powerful. There are 4 of them right now. You're in one of them, or in transition between 2. Mm-hmm. I shift through all 4 in a day. So you might find you shift pretty quickly. Generally, or sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 in a day. Sometimes it slows down a little bit. But this is a pattern that pretty much everybody, all feminine people, are moving through without realizing. And it's the reason why 1 minute you want to rip his clothes off and the next you want him to get the hell away from you. And sometimes just being premenstrual doesn't explain it, right? Sometimes it's like, hang on, no, I'm ovulating. I should want you. The system says I should want you right now, but I don't. I hate your face. So it'll really help you to understand what's going on for you. And you'll be in wild mode, bear mode, super mode, or sparkle mode right now. And one of them it'll be dictating why you feel the way you feel right now. And you understand that there are reasons why you feel the way that you feel, and that they are inside of you. It's not a victim situation. It's not someone else's fault. It's the reason, when I'm in wild mode and my kids whinging makes me want to punch holes in walls. Like I don't punch holes in walls, but, it's just like, oh God, I cannot stand another second. And when you're in sparkler mode and you're able to be like, oh, hey, are you hungry? What do you need? Right? Like,
yes.
And we're like, why can't I be like that all the time? It helps you to understand why we are different. And why, to bring it back to sex, like why at times you want to be taken up against a wall, at other times you want to be kissed passionately and have fingers run down the side of your body. Other times you're like, please, can we just cuddle? Like, I think you're the sexiest thing in the world, but I really just want to cuddle, And other times it's like, I want to lead this. Come here, big boy, like it will really help you to understand and to embrace that variety. John Wineland has a beautiful video on YouTube called What Men Crave. I love it so much. He talks in this video about how men crave variety. And I think that that's why a woman who's really in touch with her feminine flow and can move through her modes with grace will naturally have that beautiful sense of variety that is just like a drug to the masculine. So it's glorious. It's a beautiful little rabbit hole to go down.
I love that. I love talking about the different the different soul modes, because I often, I was having conversation this morning over on Clubhouse, actually, like the social media. I was hosting an event there, and we're talking about masturbation and how that can shift as you have children, or with your partner. But it's like, I want to just have some time to myself, or and why we feel guilty. And it's about really owning in that place. And the more we can trust ourselves and own that power, the more that we can, you know, be this amazing queen in our relationship as well. I love that. I love it. Now, before we finish up, I do want to say thank you so much for joining today. And I just want to acknowledge you for the work that you do. You know, it's amazing to see such a beautiful perspective on the way that women can do life in such a different way now. And just the way that you word it and the way that you live it at the same time is just incredible. So thank you so much.
Oh, such a pleasure. That's beautiful. Thank you for that gift of words. Thank you for having me. It was a good chat. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours.
I know.
Maybe I'll come back another time. I'd love to know what questions people have got. Maybe we could do another chat sometime.
That sounds awesome. And I'll also put all the links in the show notes to socials, and even the extra stuff that you mentioned, the extra resources. I'll link them up as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Beauty. See you soon.
Bye.